Insert second joke about high standards here. If one was to only get their model railway news from a certain YouTuber, one would be led to believe that the Bachmann 9Fs aren't worth your time. And I'm here today to tell you, please reconsider. Now, first things first, some of you who know your 9Fs might wonder, Scott, what are you doing with number 92097? That was a concept 9F, and I'm going to tell you, yes, you're right. I'm going to flip this model over in a second. You can see the Westinghouse air pump. But Carlisle also had an allocation of Westinghouse pump-fitted 9Fs to work Ravenscraig freight trains, limestone trains. So I could get away with this, so haha, screw you. Now, the reason I got this was because it was highly discounted, and I thought, I don't have a dedicated heavy freight loco, so here we go. And the 9F, the spaceships, they have a character about them, don't they? I mean, look at a thing like this, a massive 210, well, massive for British standards anyway, one of these thundering along, in an absolute state. It has a character, and you can't deny that. Now, with the Bachmann 9Fs, one complaint that I saw from a certain YouTuber was their lack of torque, and, well, I'll get back to that. Other than maybe a bit of ancient wire management, can I show that? Can you see that? The way that this is just a peg with the drawbar and the wires just kind of dangling on a little recess, I suppose, on the tender drawbar. That's ancient. This model was released, I believe, last year. We can do without that now, Bachmann. And why is the camera so dark? Now, do you ever have a model that is highly detailed but it feels fragile? This is highly detailed, and it does take care when lifting it up, as you saw me struggling with the tender just then. But it's not detailed to a fault, and I like that. Now, there are people who don't like factory weathering at all. I'm violently neutral on factory weathering, provided when it's not just a pool gradient that just, gets more and more towards the loco's actual livery as you go up. And with this one, it's actually not. You can just see the scale from the hard water. You can see, the rusting forming around the cylinders. I think, as far as factory weathering goes, this is a proper job. It's a bit of a shame that the rods will occasionally show signs of wear, not by being filthy, but by actually not being filthy, because, a tiny scratch will then show that underneath it's just shiny metal. Also, I saw your comments on last video. No, this isn't cancer, and it's not the effect of a thorn that's been lodged underneath my fingernail. Look up what melanin is, and then come back to me. Now, when I set the model up like this, straight on its wheels, it actually reveals one of the biggest blemishes that I have with this model, the chimney. You can just see where they glued it onto the smoke box. It's a solid surface, underneath it. It's not a hole that you can poke in. And considering that, like this is how most people will see their models, that could have been designed better. That could have been designed very much better. Now, this model is a bit older. As I said, it's reflected in I don't really care for the tender drawbar. I have a D11 that has the same drawbar. It doesn't really bother me, but on a loco this large, it is a bit of a hassle. But I can live with it. Another thing that I can live with that some people think is quite frankly, why are we still doing this? Well, if I can just lift the model up like so, you can see how the smoke box dart is only partially separately fitted. The second handle is part of the smoke box door, and again, from any sort of angle, you don't really see that. So I get why some people don't like it. However, I'm quite frankly, I don't see the issue. Now, holding this model like this, I'm supporting it on my left thumb, and underneath this model, it has pre-fitted brake rigging. But considering that was just resting on my finger and nothing has happened yet, I would like to once again bring up the Hornby
Merchant Navy,
which also has pre-fitted brake rigging. However, if you even look at it funny, it snaps. Oh, and now my camera is back to the normal brightness. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that, but however, considering on this model it's the exact same scenario and I can just hold it like that, I can just put this on an uneven surface and it doesn't instantly snap. Well, I don't know if this is Hornby to blame or Bachmann to praise, but one of those two. Also, I always say that I like to pre-fit my coal, but I've not done it with this one, and I don't actually know if the coal load is removable. It looks like it, but... Oh wait, no, there's a gap here. Aha! So I can fit my own coal. That's good to know. Let's have a look at the cab. Now we've seen better. The gauges are painted, but we've seen better. That being said, pretty good cab. Better than I was expecting for a model this ancient. Now, the British Railway standards, they're never really, big showcases of, heaps amounts of, special paint or otherwise special decal. So, one final thing I want to stress about the detailing of the 9F is the smoke deflectors. Now, Bachmann made sure to mention that these were metal. I think that metal deflectors is actually a good thing going forward. Now, what many people will wonder before purchasing a 9F is, can it run on my layout? Now, for that I'm going to display two locomotives alongside it. You can get an idea of its actual length. So let's just take a locomotive that basically anyone that has a double O gauge layout has. Let's just take a locomotive with a Type M chassis. It's just about 1/2 of the length. If I draw them forward slightly, and they're just the 9F is just too long to be in frame completely. But if I can just line them up at the front, a second Ginty would be about here. For another locomotive that many people will have, well, evidently not my version because it's still for sale in some stores heavily discounted, is my Flying Scotsman. Is it properly in frame there? There. The 9F is shorter than Flying Scotsman, tender included, for both locomotives. In fact, the Scotsman's engine bit is also longer than the 9F. Now keep in mind the 9F has a blind axle, and Scotsman has one less fixed set of wheels. You're gonna be fine if you can run a Flying Scotsman. Or an A4. Or any Pacific, really. If you can run a Pacific, you can run this. Now, remember what I said about the lack of torque? Well, if this thing has to traverse a set of second radius points, the standard Hornby points that I have, the ones that I like to call the killer, well, you're gonna need a bit of a run up to them, because this thing likes to get stuck. Because it doesn't climb the rails like that god-awful Rapido, what's it called? Hunslet, there we go. And it doesn't just decide, oh, let's just derail, like my Bachmann D11. It actually sort of wedges itself stuck on the point. But if you take it with a run-up, you should be fine. So, does it have a lack of tractive effort? Yes. But, what's the alternative from Hornby? Well, there's the Railroad 9F, which is less detailed, unless you're going for the cross-tube version. The cross-tube version is actually quite nice. Or you're going to go for the super detailed Hornby version. I have opinions on that. That thing has the same motor as the Hornby B12. And you know how I feel about the Hornby B12. Gorgeous loco, utterly crap mechanism. So, just don't. Just don't. Like, I'm gonna do this only once. Listen very carefully. I'm gonna use my influence that I apparently have over people because I'm apparently a big YouTuber. Leave the Hornby version by the wayside, please. That motor is gonna die on you within a year. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. Well, as for the running of the locomotive, well, you've seen that this is one with sound. It's brilliant. I can't fault it. Slow speed is good. High speed is good. The sound doesn't become annoying after after only a few moments. Again, I got this at a severe discount. Less than £200. I believe the total price I paid for this was £170, I think. So yeah, for that price, I can recommend this totally. Right, you know how this goes by now. It just came from the postie, so let me see. Select Loco 3. Let's see if it works first of all. Forwards. Motors buzzing. It's the second driving wheel that's actually driven, by the looks of it. But... Oh! Ooh, okay. I just chipped one of my other locos and it also started moving, so give me a second. Right, that should solve that. It doesn't make a very healthy sound, to be fair. Switch direction. But it can maintain steady running straight out of the box. All those wheels and those rods there are a marvel to look at, aren't they? How slow can you go from straight out of the box? That's is speed step 1. That's a bit coggy. 2. Still not the best. Let me just reverse her so she keeps in frame. 3. No, not yet. 4 also. Okay. I think that'll improve with running in. And as the running session will show, it does everything you ask from it. But that is about all I can say about the 9Fs. The 9Fs, they have a character on their own. So if you want a 9F, you can't do worse than the Bachmann version. The Crosty version from Hornby looks really nice, so if you want that and you're wanting to model around the Midlands or South Scotland, you can give that a go. But if you're specifically looking for just your box standard 9F, I would say go for the Bachmann version. With that out of the way, I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through these 3 parts, then thank you. It means I still have enough content for people to come back to, even if it is model railway content. Next time, when I'm going to look at something model railways, I'm going to look at something a little more... Shall I call it niche? I shall call it niche. And you're just going to have to wait and see. Some people will know what it is. Some people won't. And I'm going to leave the surprise for those people. But, in the meantime, thank you for watching. And I hope to see you next week. Cheerio!